My name is Hadeel Al Heeti. I am an artist and designer and arts educator based in Abu Dhabi. I'm half Iraqi, half Kuwaiti, which is an unlikely pairing, but it made for a very interesting growing up environment. I was born and raised in London, and I moved to the UAE 5 years ago. So my background is in fashion. My foundation lied in art and design, and I specialized in fashion, and I was working different sorts of magazines, styling for fashion weeks and photo shoots. When I came to the UAE, it kind of grew into an arts education environment, and I, alongside of creating workshops and programs catered for education, I was in a space where I could really experiment and develop my own practice as an artist, and I was relearning different methods and modes of arts and printmaking and ceramics and painting, but my passion lies in painting and ceramics. When it comes to painting, it's more of an inward experience, and I'm kind of working with this interaction between colors and forms and layering and trying to create different expressions within my work, and it kind of is in dialogue with my ceramics. My ceramics is quite delicate, and there's certain forms or shapes that I'll see in my painting, in my process. Also with glazing, it's like very thin, subtle, luminous layers that I'm trying to achieve when I'm painting, and it's this kind of conversation between the two. When I'm experimenting with glazing and coloring, I don't know what the outcome is going to look like, and the process comes out of after it's been fired. And when I see what I've created, I'm curious to discover more and create more, and then try and take that into my paintings as well. I was just experimenting with creating different design pieces, and my friends really liked them, so I started gifting them, and their friends started to like them and encouraged me to make it available to a wider audience. And I got the opportunity to showcase my work at Dubai Design Week alongside Art Jamil, and they were picked up by the shop, and they were very successful, and it kind of just developed organically. I had a line that I've been kind of making different collections as they come. Each piece is different to the next, even if they're from the same series. They're all by hand, and they're all have an intuitive sort of glaze to it or shape, so not two are the same. So recently I had a wonderful opportunity where I created an education program, partnered up with Warehouse 41 for their teen studio workshops. We created ceramic vessels, which were really enjoyable, and I loved the experience. Both my parents are appreciators of the arts, and my mum used to take us to exhibitions and museums and flea markets, and when we traveled we'd go to craft shows, and she used to collect ceramics, and at home every ceramics object she had was different from one another. No two dining plates were the same, even till now. And I guess this kind of philosophy is instilled in me when I create her ceramics. It's like no two are the same, and it's kind of you collect these pieces over time, and each one is different from the other. So I guess it's an unconscious inspiration that my parents have created for me. Working with clay it's in itself is such a moving medium. Using my hands, and it's a tactile process of creating, and it's creating something that's come from the land, and it's abundant. And most of my inspiration comes when I'm cooking. I love hosting or having dinner parties, and cooking is such a soothing process for me. And while I'm cooking, I'm thinking, what do I need? What do I want to make next? What do I feel would work well for a particular dish? And that's how I get inspired for a new collection. And ceramics and pottery and food are all intertwined and have kind of grew together as historically. When I create arts education programs catered towards children, I develop these programs in a way that just allows children to experiment with the tools available for them. And there's this rawness and this natural fearlessness that they do with the materials. It's just instinctive. And it's something I try to maintain in my own practice, whether it's painting or creating forms for ceramics or glazing. It's just this expression, and where does that come from? And it drives my curiosity. Some works that have influenced me, Joseph and Annie Albers and their research on the interaction of color and light, something I always look to. I've also inspired by Hadeel Al Heeti and the worlds she creates within her paintings and her use of color. I also look to cookbooks to get inspiration, certain surfaces or forms. A few that I like are duck soup and moro. I also love watching movies that are surrounded by food. I love Big Night, Tempopo. I'm very fortunate to work in a creative environment and be surrounded by all the tools and facilities I need to create my own practice and simultaneously develop these art education programs. And I'm learning as I'm creating, and I'm planning for new programs, and through that I'm developing my own skills as an artist. And that sort of became my studio space pre-pandemic, and then it shifted towards home. And at home I could, separate the space. I could really be inspired while I was in the kitchen, but also work until the late hours if I needed to, and be surrounded by, again, like, what do I need, what do I want to surround myself with, and kind of create these items and collections. For me, the studio space is when I'm thinking about food and looking up new recipes in the cookbook and kind of just like planning out that next collection or piece that I need, and then showcase them. So before I sit down and create, I make a Turkish coffee, extra sweet, and I listen to either a podcast or play a sitcom or a talk, just so that I'm not focused on what I'm creating. It's more intuition, and time kind of passes, and I can just create with my hands without overthinking what I'm doing.